In order to make sure you're using the right kind of sales, depending on what you're trying to do, today I'm going to go over the three classifications or three big categories of the sales types. And then from there, we'll dive into when you would actually use them. I'm Kirk Van Linden from Teach Me to Sell. This is a channel for entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, or anybody in a sales capacity that want to take the guesswork out of sales with tips, tricks, techniques that actually work. So let's jump right in. So as promised, three types of sales. Now, let me just say that this particular video is meant for beginners. So I'm taking some broad strokes here and taking a lot of generalizations of different sales types and putting them into three major categories. With that, I recognize there are countless numbers of sales approaches, sales frameworks, sales types that you could use. I'm loosely putting them into three broad categories for some general understanding for you. So with that, we're going to go over three types: transactional, what I'll call pushing sales, and then pulling sales, okay? So transactional sales, what is that? So it's exactly what it sounds like. Transactional sales really is anything where somebody has already made a buying decision. They already to that step that we all love, which is shut up and take my money. So in this case, think of cashiers, for example. A cashier is there to make the transaction happen. And typically there isn't a whole lot of conversation or sales that has to take place. Now, a drive-through, if you went to a fast food drive-through would be considered transactional in nature. Now, the reason I put transactional sales in a sales category is because it actually is almost a hybrid between service and sales, depending on how you approach it. So, for example, in the drive-through at McDonald's scenario, 10 years ago, they started flirting on the sales side, where when you would say, "I'd like the number 2, please," then they would say, "Would you like to supersize your order?" They were trying to either upsell you or get you to want to spend a little bit more, and ultimately taking on a bit of a sales capacity. Now, with food regulations and it not being healthy, they ultimately shut that plan down. And so you'll see if you went through a McDonald's, an Arby's, a Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, that they're likely just to ask for your order and they don't necessarily try to upsell you very often. Now, transactional sales has its place. It is often found where it's a lower dollar amount item, something that can be either an impulse buy or something that doesn't take a whole lot of thought process or consideration. So in these places, you really can just be transactional on your process. Now, in that space, when you're ready to be a +1, that's when you start learning a little bit more about cross-selling, upselling, different things to help entice people to buy more than what they were going to do, right? That might be the time to say, if somebody's buying a pair of shoes or something, you might say in that space, these are fantastic shoes. Many of our most avid runners who purchase this particular shoe actually also really prefer our wicking socks, for example. And we have some cotton socks over there, and those ones are wildly popular or paired with these socks. You can see this on Amazon, by the way. If you go to Amazon.com and pick an item that you're interested in, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll also see customers who bought this item or who were searching for this item were also interested in, or you'll see that little button down below where it shows this plus these 2 other items is only, and it shows you the price of the 3 items combined, and they all pair well with each other, right? So you came in to buy a camera, and you end up buying a camera and a camera bag and a tripod and a really cool lens that actually works for that camera as well. So it's a little very easy, subtle upselling. So transactional sales is really a baby gate into sales in the first place. So let's transition from transactional sales into what I'm calling pushing types of sales. And when I say push, I'm really meaning that you're pushing out the majority of the information. So now we can categorize things like if you're talking about your sales pitch. And I bring this up because a lot of people mistakenly assume that sales is a sales pitch. That's what it always has to be. And so I'll hear people say, "Man, I hate sales. I don't even have a sales pitch yet. I don't even know what my sales pitch would be." That tells me that, one, there's probably some education that can happen around the different types of sales approaches as we're going through here. And two, for many people, given their circumstance, a sales pitch doesn't even make sense for them. So in pushing sales, the general rule of thumb that I'm loosely applying here is that you're doing more than 50% of the talking. So whether you're story selling, or you're doing a sales pitch, or you're a door-to-door person and you're just trying to get as many words in to try to get them to say yes, or stereotypically you might think of the used car salesman. By the way, I want to say there are some really great car salespeople out there, and they might use transactional, pushing, or pulling, or many different types of sales in that process. So only stereotypically am I saying the used car salesperson here. The one that tries to bully you or push you into making a purchase today, even though maybe you're not ready. Or someone who tries to convince you to buy goods or services that you don't need or want. This is an extreme form of pushing style of sales. But there's actually really useful healthy side, like the sales pitch, which would be used in a scalable environment. There's maybe 50 or 100 or 1,000 people in a room, and you have a very limited amount of time in order to drum up some interest, some awareness, and ultimately, hopefully getting them to take action and either inquire more or to engage in a real one-on-one conversation, or even just to buy, in which case your sales pitch moves a person into either what we'll go over in a moment, the pulling sort of style of sales conversation, or right to your transactional sales approach, right? So pushing style has its benefits, definitely has its place as well. But again, I would put a pushing style in a type of sales where you as the salesperson are doing most of the talking, which brings us to our third style or approach to sales, which is a pulling style of sales. Now, this one is most appropriate when it's a one-on-one, or you can even do it in a small group setting if you're selling to a group of individuals. And the rule is exactly the opposite of pushing. If you're doing less than 50% of the talking and your prospective client or customer is actually doing most of the talking with your guidance, that would be more of a pulling method. If you're a coach watching this right now, then your approach to coaching most likely, and in fact, hopefully, is a pulling style of conversation. In that, you'll notice you're asking really great questions that help guide the conversation or the thought process, but your client is doing most of the talking. We're spending most of the time in their brain and in their emotions throughout the conversation. And as you approach the end of that conversation, really the next steps were determined based on where they went. You helped guide them to something productive. And that is a pulling style of sales when done in a sales capacity. So you might hear this called consultative sales. And in that, you're really spending time getting to know the other person or the group at a much deeper, more productive level. In a pulling style of sales, I care a lot about what's most important to you. What do you want to accomplish? What have you already done up to this point? And what's worked, what hasn't worked? Where are you? Where do you want to be? And what's in your way? And I'm looking for, one, to understand your situation at the deepest of level. The logic, the facts, the issues, the needs, the drivers. I want to understand all of that, but in a very efficient way. And then I want to ultimately offer solutions very specific to what you're trying to achieve. And if at the end of understanding your situation, I realize that I am not the person that can help you, then I have full permission, and hopefully that's exactly how I'm approaching this, that I'm able to tell you, I'm not your solution, but now that I understand your situation, I do have some ideas that I think can help. And so my solution, even though it's not me, hopefully can still help point them in the right direction. So to summarize, transactional is exactly what it sounds like. You're just transacting something. The pushing style, you're doing more than 50% of the talking, and it definitely has its place, especially when done well. And then a pulling style. Now, a pulling style like the consultative sales. And these, you might actually need or benefit from all three, depending on what you're selling. If you're selling a pair of shoes, all three would be an overkill. unless you have some really nice shoes that you're selling. If those are $10,000 shoes, then yes, I might need a pushing style followed by a pulling style of sales and then ending with somebody doing the transaction. If you're selling a pair of normal shoes, then transactional selling might be the only thing. And you could consider learning more things about how could I upsell or how could I maximize this one interaction, because it could likely be a single success interaction or a one and done. It's the only time I'm going to ever see this person, or maybe I only see them once a year. So I might be going after loyalty. I might be trying to create a relationship in the transactional selling space. But if you're selling something, let's say that you have some sort of a service, maybe you have a master class, or think of your a big personal development type of a speaker. Think of a Tony Robbins or even an Oprah Winfrey. In that space, there's likely the need to create massive awareness for something new, something that you're launching. And so a sales pitch, or maybe it's just advertising or copy or something that creates awareness but drums up interest, creates a little bit of FOMO, so fear of missing out. This isn't going to last forever. There's only so many spots. This is a limited time discount, whatever the FOMO is in that space. But I need to get the awareness out in a massive scale. It needs to be very scalable in a very fast amount of time. Now the pushing happens up front and saying, if this is something that you want, you've got X amount of days or how much time or this many spots left, here's how you can get a hold of us. And that who you're talking to next would be hopefully, something like a pulling style of conversation. What are you looking to get out of this? Why is this important to you? Why must you change? Why must you change now? Now, in that conversation, it could be another pushing style of sales. I personally prefer, in a one-on-one interaction, a pulling style or consultative sales. There's no other way that I can get to know you at that deepest of level unless I'm actually asking questions and learning instead of data dumping, feature dumping information onto you, right? And then lastly, it could be a third step, which is, all right, I've drummed up scalable interest. Of those that were really interested, we've had one-on-one conversations, and of the one-on-one conversations from that polling style, we actually now are ready to say, shut up and take my money, or they're ready to say, shut up and take my money. And we need to set all of that up with the logistics and what are the next steps. And so in that example of something, a higher dollar amount, something that's a bigger commitment for someone, there actually could be space to have all three of these categories of sales that are needed in order to bring a sale across that finish line. So with that, ask yourself, given what you're trying to do, which of those or which combination of those do you feel that you're currently engaging in? And then two, is it the best one? Is it the best method for you, or is there a better way? I'd love to hear from you in the comments, or send me an email directly. My email's down in the notes as well. Reach out to me, ask me questions. I'd be happy to help in that space. From here, what to do next is you can now narrow your focus on your learning. Does it make the most sense for you to learn additional tricks and techniques in the transactional, or in the pushing style, or in the pulling? If right now you realize that, you know what, you need to get good at a sales pitch, well, now you can sort of funnel out all the other noise and really drill into your sales pitch. But if it's a one-on-one conversation and you're thinking, you know what, I have been pushing, but I think a pulling would be much better, even when somebody comes in asking questions about a product, or you're a coach or a consultant and they're interested in, how can you help me? Well, instead of data dumping or feature dumping, just giving them all of the benefits of working with you, instead saying, the program itself is great, but I'm biased. I don't yet know if it's great for you, but I will by the end of this conversation. Help me understand, what are you looking for? What's most important to you? What results are you after? What are the benefits for you getting those results? And what is the pain or the cost if you don't get those results? So why must you change, and why must you change now? And then by the end, you can present your solution in a very short period of time and let them make a decision. With that, I really appreciate you coming to the channel. I appreciate you watching this video, and good luck on everything you do. I can't wait to see you in the next video.